All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We'll go ahead and get started here. If you got your questions, go ahead and post them. It's going to be below the video if you are on a smaller screen like a mobile device. If you are on a larger screen like a laptop, desktop computer, something like that, it's usually going to be to the right of the video. So I usually start with questions that were asked up to an hour before. So let me zoom in on this so I can actually read it. All right. So scrolling down here, it looks like Louis V will be who I'm starting with. But first, I wanted to go over. I get a question all the time from students asking, how do the shoulders work properly in the swing? How do they tilt properly in the swing? You know, if you're someone who's having trouble with consistency, this is likely an issue that's going on in your swing. And also, if you're having trouble when you make a full shoulder turn, being able to see the golf ball at the top of the swing. So you end up shortening your swing and losing a lot of power because you want to make sure that you can see the golf ball. So what I mean by shoulder tilts in the swing, or how the shoulder should work, is basically when you're turning up to the top, to be able to not move your head way off the ball, or to be able to stay in your posture properly, you have to tilt your shoulders. So what that movement would look like is what's called side bend. So I'm tilting my left shoulder down in the backswing. So for a right-hander, if I didn't tilt my shoulders, I would go like this, right? And obviously that's not going to be good. I'm not going to be able to see the golf ball from here. And I'm also going to have to make compensations in the downswing to make that work. So what we need to do in the swing, in the backswing, to get this to work properly, is we have to tilt our shoulder down. So imagine I'm just going to do the tilt before I start my backswing, and now I'm going to do my backswing. And now you can see I'm in the right position. So if you look at that from this angle, if I do my tilt again and I turn, that's the position that I want to be in when I'm going up to the top. Now in the downswing, we want to have that other side bend, right? We want to have right side bend as we're coming through contact. If we don't, then we're going to end up coming through with our shoulders very, very level, right? That's going to be early extension, flipping, very, very difficult to be consistent in the swing. So in order to keep our head steady, in order to not have to make other compensations in the swing, we have to have these tilts in the swing. A lot of people struggle with this. So I have a great drill that I'm going to show you that's going to help you to get this working a lot better. So first, and when you can do this at your home initially, just like I have set up here initially, and then you can kind of take it out to the range. So what I would do is I'd put a ball down. I'd have your ball down here, and then I would take another club. I'm going to use this pool noodle or whatever you got laying around the house. You know, another club, alignment sticks, pool noodle, whatever you got, you can make do with here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one alignment stick and I'm going to put it 2 feet on the other side of the golf ball. And it doesn't have to be exact. We're just trying to get a good guesstimate here. So 2 feet on the other side of the golf ball, and I'm going to put my pool noodle here, another 2 feet on the other side of that. And the reason why I have two here, I'll explain here in a minute, is your backswing tilt is going to be different than your downswing tilt. And that's why we have two sticks. So we're going to be tracing one for the backswing, and we'll be tracing one for the downswing. So what we want to do first is take the club out of our hands. I think if we do something that gives us really good feedback right away, this is going to make it a lot easier. So we're going to take the club out of our hands, and we're going to put it right up here on our shoulders, so that way we can get feedback for where our shoulders are pointing throughout the swing, and if we're tilting the right way, and so on and so forth. So really, really important, when you put this up on your shoulders, you need to get it nice and high up here on the shoulders. The easiest way to do that is just kind of cross your hands in front just like this. And I want you to have it basically equal on each end. So I got the butt end pointing out that way, and I got the club end going out that way. It doesn't matter which one you use. Just you can use an alignment stick for this as well. Just have something across your shoulders here, but you want to have it on top of your shoulders going across your shoulder, your collarbone here. We don't want it on your chest, and we don't want it in your elbow pits. The reason why is, look, I can turn, and then I can kind of go like this, or I can manipulate it. I can have my shoulders level, right, pretty level as I'm going up the top, and I can manipulate this to do what I want it to do. And that's not going to be an accurate representation of how your shoulders are turning. So get it right up on top of the shoulders there. That's going to be what you want to do. So I'm going to get in my address position here with the ball, and then I'm going to put the club across my shoulders here. Now, as I turn to the top, what I want to do is I want to trace this stick, the club across the furthest stick. And the reason why is because your backswing shoulder plane is going to be a little bit flatter than or a little less steep than your downswing shoulder plane. I'll explain why that is here in a minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace that club right at that pool noodle as I'm going up to the top. And you can see as I'm doing that, I'm getting in that left side bend. You know, as a right-handed golfer, I'm getting in that left side bend. If I turn like I did before, you can see where the butt end of the club is pointing. It's pointing toward the doorknob over there on my door. So I want to get that nice and steep. So I'm going to feel as that left side bend as I'm going up to the top. I'm going to feel my hip turning back. Right? I'm going to feel my head staying nice and steady. Now I want you to be cognizant of where the ball is when you're doing this as well. So that way you'll more easily be able to transfer this to your swing. So I'm just going to do a few of those. And I'm going to try to get this butt end of the club to be pointing a little bit behind the ball too, to make sure I'm getting a good shoulder turn. So to look at that from this angle, I'm trying to make sure I'm getting a good shoulder turn as I'm doing this as well. Because now that I'm getting a good tilt, I can get a good shoulder turn too, because I can see the ball now. Now on the downswing, what I want to do is I want to trace this other end of the stick on the lower stick. And the reason why we want it lower is because we're going to be coming down and getting some good forward shaft lean. You know, if we're not going to be really extending, we're going to be doing kind of our squat move and turning down and getting into that good position at impact. So when you're in that better position at impact, you're going to have a steeper shoulder plane as you're coming through. What's really, really important with this and why we want to trace the line is so that way our shoulders stay on plane. What a lot of people do and have trouble with is they'll get here and then they will go like this. Well, now look, I'm not tracing down that stick. I'm going like that. They go into that right side bend too soon. So this is going to help you to get into that right side bend at the right time. So you can see I'm turning, I'm getting into that right side bend at the right time. I'm not doing it back here. If I did it back here, I would go, my shoulder tilt would go way over there, right? It's happening at the right time if I'm tracing it right down like that. So then I'm going to go through into the full finish. So I do lots of repetitions, and you can do this at home. Great time to do it, you know, in the wintertime if you're having trouble with this. Set up to it, get it across your shoulders, go nice and slow at first, right? And I'm going to drop it back a little bit, right, to get my shoulder plane a little bit steeper. I'm going to drop my hips back a little bit as I do this to get my shoulder plane steeper, and I'm going to come all the way through into the full finish. Now just do that really, really slow at first, making sure you're getting that good turn and tracing those sticks. And then I would just speed it up a little bit, go a little bit faster, a little bit faster. So again, if I step up to this, I'm going to go a little bit faster this time. So I'm going to get in my good tilt. I'm just going to go all the way around and go a little bit faster every single time until basically I'm getting to full speed with it. Once I get to where I'm at full speed with it, I'm starting to get comfortable with the motions of what I'm doing. Now I'm going to try to do it in a practice swing. And again, you can save your money and not go to the range for a while and get this right. The way, a lot of people make the mistake of they try to think, okay, well, I just need to turn my shoulder steeper, and they think it's just going to happen right away in the swing. Unfortunately, it usually doesn't work that way. Typically, you got to go and get reps in, get comfortable with it, and then work your way toward hitting a golf ball. So it's always great, especially this time of year, to get some reps in, changing some things at home. So I would make sure it looks good on video in a practice swing before you try and hit it with the golf ball. Because typically, if you can't do it slow, you can't do it fast. If you can't do it in a practice swing, you can't do it with the golf ball. It's typically the way that it works. So you want to kind of work your way up toward it. And if you can do it with all those, and if you can do it, in a practice swing, then you can already just go to the golf ball, right? So what we want to do is get it good in our practice swing now. And what a big mistake that people make is they feel like they've done these reps, right, with the club across the shoulders, and then magically it's going to show up in your swing. You need to be very conscious of how your body is moving when you're doing this. It's not going to magically make its way into your swing. You have to be conscious of, okay, I need to make sure, keep these there so that way they're a good visual aid, but we need to make sure that we're still getting into those tilts. We're still getting these same feelings. So it might be good to do some reps when you're doing this to make a mental note. Okay, where are my hips at? How much shoulder tilt am I feeling? How much left side bend am I feeling? Where is my head at? Make mental notes of what all those things feel like. And then when you go to take your practice swing, try to get those same feelings, those same mental notes that you had where you're getting into that good position at the top with the shoulder in your tilts. So make some practice swings nice and slow at first. And then once those start to feel better and you look on video, shoulder planes look better, then I would add the golf ball and start doing it with the golf ball. But if you do these drills with the sticks there, it's going to give you a very good representation of what's going on with the shoulder tilts. All right, so hopefully that helps. Let me know if you have any questions about that, but hopefully that helps with the shoulder tilt questions. All right. So like I said, we're going to start here with Louis V. Says, good morning. Can you go over the path of the hands through the swing, especially at impact and through impact? So that's a good question. So basically, what we have to understand is that the hands work around your body. They don't work in a straight line, right? The hands are working around your body in a circle, right? So if you are someone who is getting forward shaft lean, right, like a tour player, right, a tour player who gets forward shaft lean, their hands are going to be working up and to the left when the club is getting to the golf ball, right? So my hands are working around my body, and they're turning the corner, and then they're working up and to the left as the club is getting to the ball. For many players, what I see is when they hit the ball, that's when the hands are turning the corner. So if you're someone who releases early, typically your hands are going to be working around your body, and then the club is going to be turning the corner at the same time as the hands are, and we get that early release happening. So, you know, if you're struggling with forward shaft lean and things like that, you may want to get the sensation that your hands are working up and to the left. If you're a right-handed golfer, up and to the left as you're coming into contact. And realize that your hands get really low, then they work up and to the left. Now, as you get up to the top of the swing, the hand path can be a lot of different things. There's not, you know, in the backswing, there's no set hand path that needs to happen for everybody. Everyone can have a little different swing. I've seen swings where the hands go like this and everything works out great in the downswing. I've seen swings where the hands go like this and everything works out great in the downswing. So what you want to do, what I've always said in these office hours is a good setup sets up a good backswing, a good backswing sets up a good downswing, a good downswing sets up a good impact. So if you're doing something with if you're clearly seeing that your hand path is going really, really inside, and then you see that your hands are going out like this in the start of the downswing, then you may want to feel like your hands are going the opposite, right? So that's what you want. That's what you want to make sure that you're doing. But if you see your hands are going way inside, and then your hand path is great in the downswing, well, your backswing hand path isn't hurting you in any way. If anything, it's helping you to get into a better position. So what we typically see and what you want to look at on video as far as the hand path is concerned is what I would recommend. The easiest way to do it is to draw what's called the elbow plane. So if we draw the elbow plane here, what you're going to do is film your swing from down the line here, get it going right down your toe line, and then draw a line from the hosel of the club up through your elbow. And what this is going to do is this is going to give you a representation of the elbow plane line. And that's going to help you to get to see where the hands should be moving down. So typically, as you go up to the top of the swing, the hands are going to be somewhere above that elbow plane. They can be on the elbow plane if you have a flatter swing. So maybe you have a flatter swing, you're like this. It's not going to be the most powerful position. You don't see a lot of tour players there because of that. But it's a fine position to be in. If you're looking for distance, I'd recommend trying to get a little bit more upright. But most players are going to be somewhere in this area. So my elbow plane is in this area right here, and my hands are going to be typically above that at the start of the swing. Now, what we want is in the start of the downswing, as we get to lead arm parallel, we want those hands to be working toward that elbow plane. So typically by the time the hand or the hands or the lead arm is back to parallel, you're going to see the hands a little bit above that elbow plane, but they're going to be working toward it. What you don't want to see is the hands working away from that elbow plane, right? We want to get the hands working toward the elbow plane. right? Now, by the time you get to hip level with the hands, you want to see the hands on that elbow plane at that point, and then remain on that elbow plane all the way to impact. So the hands are going to be working basically from hip level to hip level. You're going to see the hands kind of working on that arc, right? So it's an arc. The hands are moving to the left because it's on an arc here because they're working down and around, but they're going to be on that elbow plane there. So that's typically where you want to look at. So if you look on video and you see your hands working out away, there could be there's lots of reasons why you might do that. You might be across the line at the top and you're trying to shallow out the club, so you move your hands out that way. You could just be coming over the top. There's all kinds of reasons why that could be happening, but that's typically what you want to see is you want to see the hands working toward the elbow plane from the top of the swing. They typically won't get on the elbow plane until about waist level. And then once they hit about waist level, you want them to stay on the elbow plane essentially until you can't see them, until you can't really see the hands anymore. Typically, the hands will go out of view by the time they get off the elbow plane there. So hopefully that makes sense. But that's the hand path in summary there. So Chester W says, for a while in 2020, the PRGR Black was not available. Then they came out with a newer version of the PRGR Black. Has TSG had an opportunity to test it? And if so, what are the differences, good and bad? If TSG still recommends this device, are there any deals available? So I wasn't aware that they came out with a new device. Pretty sure it's probably the same device, but maybe they do have a newer device. There's a PRGR Black. We tested it a long time ago. I would assume that it's improved if they have a newer version out there. But all the ones that we've tested are good. We still have our link available, which I can put in the description. I believe you can still get it. Let me check. Just check in the. Let's see if it's available at our affiliate link here. Yeah, it looks like it's available at our affiliate link here. The cost is $195. I'm not sure exactly how much it is at other places. You may be able to find it less expensive other places, but I believe that this is a little bit of a discount compared to where you can find most places. I think it's over $200. But yeah, if you'd like to purchase it, I'll put the link in the comments here, so that way you can go check it out. Here we go. So it should show up there in the comments, the link where you can go purchase the PRGR. So anybody looking for a club head speed device, it's a very, very good club head speed device. And for the money and for what it does, we think it's great. So if you want to check it out, click that link. We also did a video. If you click that link, there's a video where Clay went over a lot of the other devices that we tested as well. So you can check those out. So Brenda B said, could you comment on the number of wedges you carry in your golf bag and how you chose the bounce and grind of each club? So I have in my bag, I have a pitching wedge, which is just a part of the set. It has the same bounce as basically the rest of the set, standard bounce on there. And then I have wedges that are kind of like this style. I have a 50 degree, a 54 degree, and a 58 degree. Those are just the degrees that I find I like the most. I like the gapping with those the most. Some people do a 52, a 56, and a 60. Some people will do like a 50, a 56, and then like a 64 degree or something like that. But I just find that I work better. I get plenty of spin on my 58 degree. I don't need more loft to get more spin. So I'm good with what I got. Now, as far as the bounce is concerned, I typically like somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 degrees of bounce with all my wedges, except for the 50 degree. The 50 degree is because I typically take more of a full swing with that club. It's very rarely that I would take I would use that to chip or anything like that. But typically the clubs that you chip and pitch with, your shorter shots that you would hit out of the sand and things like that, you would want a fair amount of bounce because that's what helps you hit through the sand a little bit more. As far as the grind is concerned, I don't get into the whole grind thing. I just have I have the Ping Glide. They don't have different things. Personally, I don't think it makes that much of a difference. I think it's more of a gimmick, more or less. But really, it just kind of goes. I shouldn't say that. It's not necessarily a gimmick. It's just, a tour player, it makes a big difference too because they're very concise in what they're doing. But the average population is really not going to make any difference what kind of grind they use. They really just need to get something with a fair amount of bounce on it. Somewhere in the 8 to 10, maybe even 12-degree range for those higher lofted wedges. So that way you can get through the sand very easily. But the best way to know what wedges you need and what works best for you is to really just get a fitting. And I got fitted for my wedges, and I didn't go through a whole grind thing. With Ping, it might maybe because they don't have a bunch of different kind of grinds and things like that. But I didn't go through a whole process with them. I just told them basically, hey, I like this amount of bounce. I hit a few of them, and they were I liked them. So those are the wedges that I got. But yeah, if I were to be telling somebody, hey, just get yourself something that's got a fair amount of bounce on it. Don't be afraid of the leading edge being a little bit above the ball. You're going to be hitting underneath the ball. So now if you play in really, really firm, like if you're someone who lives in Texas and you play in really, really firm, dry conditions all the time, you may not need that much bounce. And you may benefit from having, 6 to 8 degrees of bounce, somewhere in that area, lower amount of bounce. But pretty much anywhere else, if you're playing really tight and firm conditions, that would be the only time I would say maybe go toward a little bit less bounce. But I would still probably have a wedge in my bag that has a good amount of bounce in it. So that way you can more easily hit bunker shots, because that's what allows the club to glide through the sand is that bounce. If you don't have enough bounce on your wedge, it's typically going to want to dig into that sand, and then your club's going to kind of get lost in the sand there. So Jim A says, could you explain how hip rotation works in golf swing? How much time do you have? But basically, what we can talk about is essentially the basics. And we actually have a crazy detail video. If you want to see like a 20-minute video where Clay talks about the hips and things like that, I'll tell you where you can find that. But basically, I think the easiest way to kind of think about it is to think about your hips as a bucket of water. So in the backswing, so at address, your hips are going to be tilted a little bit forward, right? So it's not all the way filled up with water. You've got a little bit of space at the top. So when you tip forward a little bit, just a little bit at address, the water's not quite spilling out yet. Now, as you go up to the top, those hips are turning on that tilt. So that water is still not spilling out yet. The bucket is just turning as you're going up to the top. Now, as I start the downswing, what's going to happen is my hips are going to move back a little bit. I'm going to go into what's called some hip flexion here as I start down, and I'm going to be rotating as I'm doing that. So if you imagine the bucket of water, it's going to start as I start my downswing, right? As I start with my hips going down, it's going to start spilling out the front, and then I'm just going to kind of splash the water. So my hips are going to go down and back, right? And as I'm rotating, and imagine just water just flying out like this because my hips are rotating as I'm starting down. So basically, they would move down and back and start rotating. So you're sitting and rotating as you're starting down. So like I said, I think that the bucket of water really helps you understand, okay, it's going to be spilling out, and I'm going to be, it's not just going to spill out just in one spot. It's going to be spread. I'm spreading this water all over the place in front of me because I'm rotating my hips too. And then as I get to, as I'm getting close to impact, then I'm going to actually start extending. and I'm going to start losing this angle here between my spine and my legs. I'm going to start losing that angle. So that's what's called extension there. So as I'm coming in, I'm getting that rotation as I'm coming into contact, and then I'm going to start extending, and then my hips start going up like this. So now my hips are basically level at when I'm into the full finish of my swing. My hips are basically level at that point. So again, to show you from this angle, my hips are tilted forward. I'm going to go back like this. My hips are turning on that tilt. And then as I start down, the water's spilling out the front and splashing in front of me, right? And then as I come through impact, I'm going to extend my hips forward like this as I come all the way around and into the full finish. So I think that's a great visual to understand how the hips work. But if you want to hear all the detail, crazy detail type stuff, click the instruction tab and then go to the vault categories, and then go to the crazy detail vault. There's one on the hips in there where Clay talks about all the hip movements. So Gufron A says, Merry Christmas, Quentin. Rest of the Top Speed Golf team. Thanks, Gufron. Appreciate that. You too. So it goes on to says, how much wrist hinge and shots around the green, 20 or 30 yards? Really doesn't need to be any. A slight amount. So for these short shots, if it's so basically this would be kind of a 20 to 30 yard shot, and you can see there, not really any wrist hinge there. Right now, if you are in, let's say that you are in some really deep rough, right? If you're in the fairway, I would have very little to no wrist hinge on a shot like that, right? Very, very little to no. And the reasoning is that we want to get that club coming in nice and shallow. We want to be able to kind of sweep the turf with those short shots, use the bounce a little bit, allow that club to kind of slide underneath the golf ball. That's going to give you very, very consistent shots. But let's say you're in some really deep rough, right? You're in some really, really deep rough. It's the ball's kind of buried down in there. Well, in that case, we want to introduce some wrist hinge, because what that's going to help you do is that's going to help you to come down more steeply into the ball. So let's say I have a 30-yard shot. I'm kind of in the deep rough here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a high lofted club, something like my 58 or my 54 or something like that. I'm going to take a high lofted club. I'm actually going to open the face just a little bit. I'm going to put the ball a little bit further back in my stance. The reason why I would do that, if I introduce a ball here, the reason why I would do that is, again, that's going to help me to come down more steeply. We want to come down more steeply into the ball, because if we come in really shallow like we normally would, well, then my club's going to get caught up in all that grass, and it's going to be very, very difficult to make solid contact. So I actually want to come in a little bit steeper. So I'm going to put the ball a little bit further back in my stance. I'm going to open the face to help the ball come up out, and then I may introduce a little bit of wrist hinge in there, so that way I can get down more steeply into the ball. So that would be something like this, where I would get it to come out kind of like that. Now, it may come out a little bit hot. Those are going to be difficult shots if you're in that kind of situation. It's not a high percentage shot. It'd be better if you were in the fairway, but that's really going to help you to kind of get that ball up out of the rough. So again, I kind of pop it down just kind of like that. So with that kind of shot, I would use a little bit of wrist hinge, but out of the fairway, if I have a good lie, or even if I have a good lie in the rough and it's not, sitting way down the rough, I don't have a bunch of grass to swing through, I would come in nice and shallow, very, very little wrist hinge, come in kind of like that, and it'd be very, very consistent with that type of movement. So go try that. Very little wrist hinge, come in nice and shallow on those good lie shots, and then you get a deep rough kind of shot. That's when try doing it with a kind of a shallow kind of swing and see what happens. And then do one where you play it a little bit further back, hinge the wrist a little bit, and let the loft kind of drop the club right behind the ball and let the loft kind of pop it out of there. And you'll see a big difference between, using the shallow kind of swing and the kind of swing I talked about there. So Michael H says, what should start the downswing? Do you fire the hips first and let the arms follow? Is there a good drill to help start the downswing better? So the downswing, you want to start the downswing with really from the ground up, from the lower body. So we're here, right, at the top of the swing. We want to get some pressure going into the lead foot, and then that starts kind of firing everything. So our hips are going to be starting to pull, then our torso is going to be pulling, then the arms, and then the club. And then the hands and the club. The best drill to work on this is called the step drill. Basically, in this drill, what you're doing is you're starting with your feet together, and you're starting this backswing. You're getting some momentum moving forward. Most people don't start the downswing properly because they don't start having any momentum moving forward until their arms are already down. So basically, they're here, they start the arms, and then their momentum's kind of going forward, and they get what I would call a false weight shift, where the arms, it's just the arms swinging in front of the body. The momentum of the arms swinging in front of the body is what brings you all the way around, as opposed to you getting to your lead side, and then your arms are swinging because you are really driving with the legs and flying everything through. So that's what I would try to feel like, is that your lower body is starting that downswing. And the best way to work on is that step drill, because it forces you to get that momentum moving to your lead side before you switch directions with the club. So to find that drill, to find that step drill, find where clay goes through, we have it in several videos on the website. But if you want to check it out, one that I like, it's a video, it's called How to Start the Downswing. And you can find it by using the search engine on the website. It actually works really, really well, the search engine. So if you're ever looking for anything, it works awesome. If you're on like the normal website, just go in the upper right-hand corner and you'll find that search box there. Select that search box and put in downswing, and some search results will come up. You'll find several videos there, but the video is called How to Start the Downswing, and it's got some yellow lettering in the thumbnail. That's the one that you want, where Clay talks about the step drill. Another video where Clay talks about the step drills in the 20-minute distance fix, the sumo step. That is the step drill there to help you start sequencing better and then start the downswing. To get the 20-minute distance fix, just click the instruction tab, then click the 20-minute distance fix. It's in week 1. That's that sumo step drill. If you're on a mobile device and you want to find that search box, it's still on there. It's just a little bit harder to find. Go in the upper right-hand corner and select the that icon there. It looks like 3 horizontal lines. That will expand a menu. And then if you scroll down the bottom of that menu, you'll find the search box there where you can find the video that I'm talking about. All right, so let's keep answering some questions here. Causing such a low ball flight feels like the club face is being delofted and into 1 to 2 degrees. It's hard to say exactly what would be going on without seeing your swing, but most likely what's going on is you're hitting it low on the club face. So your driver has a domed face, right? So what that means is that the loft that's on this driver. So this driver is a 9-degree driver. That's from the center of the face, right? If I go higher on the face, it can be as much as 12 degrees. If I go lower on the face, it could be as little as 6 degrees, right? So I'm guessing, it's hard for me to know without seeing your swing, but I'm guessing that those occasional low hit drives are probably from hitting it off the lower part of the face. So a way to figure that out would be to get some foot powder spray it on the club face, and then hit some shots. And whenever you hit that low one, see where that strike is on the face. And I would guess, like I said, that it would be on that lower part of the face. So typically, if you're hitting it low on the face, occasionally, you're probably hitting it, in the center of the face usually. So you may want to kind of try to hit it a little bit higher on the face to get that higher ball flight. So it's just, normally you try to hit it low or in the center. I'd just be trying to hit it higher in the face. Other things that can be causing that, you could be chopping down into the ball. So I would maybe check your compression line. Typically, Low ball flight on drives is from hitting down on the ball. It's typically not from de-lofting. It's more from now, because most people just don't de-loft their driver. Most people are going to be chopping down into the ball, and that's most likely what's going on. So look at your compression line. Your compression line being the line that goes from your lead ankle, hip, and shoulder. We want that to be in a straight line. We want to be a little bit angled away from the target with the driver. Anywhere in this area is going to be good. If we're vertical, right, or even leaning toward the target, that's going to promote more of a downward angle of attack, which is going to give you some low ball flight. But I would guess that's not it, because typically you're not going to really change that compression line a lot. It's not going to, those occasional drives would be very far often or more often. If you're getting an occasional low drive, it's most likely because you occasionally hit it lower on the face. So use some foot power spray and see what's going on there. So Dennis G says, hey Q, when hitting a fairway wood off the tee, how high should you tee the ball? Half of the club face, like a driver? Yeah. So if you are wanting to hit it like, if you're wanting to hit up on the ball a little bit. So basically, I get this question a lot. People ask, hey, with fairway woods, how high should I tee up the ball? And it depends on what kind of shot you're trying to hit. So if you're trying to hit your 3-wood as far as you can, or your fairway wood as far as you can off the tee, I would hit it very similar to where you would your driver. So I don't have a fairway wood in here, but with a driver, we play it further up in the stance. We tee the ball up so that we can hit up on the ball, and we tee it up to where, roughly about half of the ball is above the crown of the club. Well, you can do that same thing with a fairway wood. You can play it a little bit further up in your stance, more off the lead shoulder. You can tee it up just a little bit, same amount. I'd have it just a little bit above, and that will give you some room, some space to let that club work up into the ball. But you can hit it the same way you do out of the fairway too. You just tee it up to where you give yourself a perfect lie in the fairway. So if you imagine a perfect lie in the fairway with a 3-wood or your fairway wood, I would just try to give yourself that same kind of lie on the tee box. It's just teeing it up a little bit, and you would play it the same way you would out of the fairway. Not so far up in the stance, a little bit forward of the middle, and you would hit down on the ball a little bit, come in pretty level, or a little bit down on the ball a little bit. And that shot's not going to go as far. It's going to be a little bit more spinny, but it may be a little bit easier for you to control. So if you're kind of looking for a fairway finder or something like that, and you're very good at a good lies with your fairway wood out of the fairway, you may want to take that approach. But if you're trying to hit it further, right, then you would hit it similar to what you would with the driver. But yeah, about half of the ball, the equator of the ball, even with the crown of the club, that would be a good place to tee it up. A good amount to tee it up. So Floyd V says, hi Q, will you please review the right knee action in the transition squat move? My right leg stands up on backswing to get more turn and then flexes down on transition. Do I also turn it toward the target as it flexes down? In the start of the transition, your right knee goes back. Let me use a different club since it's a lot longer. So basically, as we're straightening out our trail leg a little bit to turn our hip, we want to be reflexing that trail leg. So it is going to be moving toward the ball a little bit as I start that, right? It's moving more forward as I'm kind of twisting into the ground, all right? And then it's going to start moving forward and kind of toward the ball as I'm coming through. So as I go up to the top, straightening a little bit, right, to turn my hip back. And then as I start the downswing, it's going to be reflexing and moving. If you look from this angle, it's going to be moving a little bit toward the ball. Now, what we don't want to do is we don't want to go like this, right? Because that's going to make you extend. We need to get down into the ground a little bit here. So that way we can move and open up our body accordingly. If we go like this, right, that's going to be early extension, right? And then I'm going to stand up and flip. So we need to be flexing it down as I'm starting the downswing. So by the time my lead arm gets back to parallel, I want to have my hips back to parallel or back to square, right? And I want to kind of be down in this sit down position. So here I would be at address, right? A little bit of flex in the knees, athletic position. As I go up to the top, I'm straightening it out. Then as I get to lead arm parallel, right, and the start of the downswing, I'm going to have more flex in my legs and my hips are going to be back to square. My knees are going to move apart a little bit, especially my lead knee. My trail knee is not going to move away, but my lead knee is going to open up like this as I start down, right? If you look at tour players, go look at a lot of tour player swings in slow motion. You'll see all this stuff where they get back to parallel with the lead arm. The hips are back to square. The knees are moved apart a little bit, and then they start to move together as your trail knee is going to start to work in this way, and your lead leg is going to start straightening out as you come into impact. And typically at impact, you're going to see the trail heel is coming off the ground a little bit, right? It's not moving out that way because that would be your extension, right? It's just coming off the ground a little bit and moving in toward my other knee as I'm coming in to impact. And then from there, I come all the way around. My knees basically come together at that point. So Steve E says, Q, does practicing exclusively off mats affect how you hit the ball on the turf? In South Florida, almost all courses require you to practice off the mats unless you are a member. I practiced for a year on mats and have started to play off real golf recently. I'm using all my strokes on chunks and thin shots right in the middle of the fairway. Drives and short game, rough are okay. I practiced yo. So anyway, so yeah, if you're hitting off of a mat, it can give you, it can basically, because when you hit off a mat, what happens is that you can hit behind the golf ball, right? I can hit behind the golf ball and my club will slide on the ground and I can hit a perfect shot. But it can give me, it's not giving me feedback on if I chunked it or not, right? If you have real good, typically, I'm hitting off a mat, I can tell, okay, I chunked that. But it's a skill that you have to develop and a feel that you have to develop. But if you don't have that skill or haven't developed it, then you can hit 6 inches behind the golf ball on a mat a lot of times, especially if you're coming in very shallow, and it'll just slide right on there, and it will give you the, you look at the shot and be like, oh, well, that's a good shot. But the reality is that you hit pretty far behind the ball. So what I'd recommend doing is getting like a thin towel, like a golf towel or something like that. I actually got a golf towel here that I got for Christmas. Pretty cool, monogrammed and everything. So I would take a towel. This one probably wouldn't be the best one because it's like sewed. It's like sewn up here, but most towels that would lay flat, you just kind of lay it flat behind the ball. I put it behind the ball on the mat, roughly about 3 inches, somewhere in that area, and then hit some shots, and then you'll get feedback whether you're chunking it or not. So you want to hit shots to avoid that towel, and you'll find that the shots will start to become more crisp when you do that. So place it about 3 inches behind it and then hit shots. And then if you hit the towel, right? So if I come in and I hit the towel, I'm going to get feedback. Okay, that was actually a chunk shot. It wasn't a real good shot. So I need to make sure I'm getting to my lead side and things like that. Now, if you're looking for some drills to help with the chunking and things like that, I'd recommend working through our stop chunking and topping course. And if you're working through it on a mat, you can use like a towel or something like that to give you some feedback whether you're doing it correctly. So to find that stop chunking and topping course, click the instruction click the house icon at the top of the page. That'll take you to the home page. If you scroll down the home page, you'll see a list of all the courses that are included with your membership. There's 20 plus courses there. Select that stop chunking and topping course, and there'll be some drills in there to help you work through the issues with the chunking. But work through it with the towel on the mat, and it should work out fine. So Hugh L says, can you talk about the lead wrist rotation in conjunction with the straight line release? You talk about casting a fishing rod with the lead hand through impact. However, is there any forearm rotation? Also, I struggle to understand what the lead wrist should do to get the proper whip release. So basically, there's no there's going to be some players that have more forearm rotation and some players that have very little. So if you look at someone like a Jordan Spieth comes through basically no forearm rotation, right? If you look at someone like a Rory McIlroy, he comes in a lot of forearm rotation. So there's no right or wrong way to do it there. There's no exact, like, this is how your arm has to rotate through impact to be a good golfer. Because obviously you can see that there are some players that have very little and there's some players that have a lot. So what I would really be focusing on is how you are releasing the club. Are you releasing it out in front, right? That's what you really want to focus on, is are you releasing the club out in front? Not how much are my arms rolling over, how much my arms are not rolling over. I'd be focusing more on the actual release of the club through impact. So there's no, like I said, there's no, what I like to focus on are what are called absolute truths. So, or universal truths, that's a better term. So universal truths are basically what the top speed golf system is. Every tour player has a stable fluid spine. Every tour player has a power turn. Every tour player is generating lag and releasing that lag out in front. Every tour player is has their compression line, lined up, and angled away from the target or a little bit vertical. They're all nailing these positions. These are universal truths of good golfers. Where there is leeway are things like what you're talking about. How much the arms are rolling over through impact. How much lead arm bend you have at the top of the swing. These are things where you're going to see variances among the best players in the world. I know that's not probably an answer that you're looking for, but what I'd recommend doing is actually focusing on the straight line release drills and what Clay is talking about in there, and getting the club to release out in front. If you release out in front and your club face is more like this, or it's more like this, that's fine. Both of those are completely fine. The key is where that club head's releasing, where that butt end of the club is pointing into your body. That's what you want to focus on the most. So how much your forearms rotate is really, it's really kind of your own personal swing signature. Not everyone's going to do it the exact same. So hopefully that makes sense. Ray S says, will a single plane work with TSG? Yes. Single plane works with, the top speed golf system. If you look at, probably one of the more famous people that swung on a single plane would be Mo Norman. If you look at Mo Norman's swing, he is nailing the pieces of the top speed golf system. So yes, top speed golf system works with single plane, two plane, however many planes you want. It'll work on any of it. So Joseph A says, hi, Quentin. I'm working on the move, and I have a question regarding this for wedges. Should I be using this for wedges also? So let me answer that real quick. Yes. So let's understand what exactly the move is. The move is getting the club on plane and square as soon as possible on the start of the downswing. That's what the move is. And you want to do that with all of your clubs, no matter if it's a driver, a 7-iron, a hybrid club, a wedge. You want to get the club on plane and square as soon as you possibly can in the downswing. That's really what the move is, essentially. Now, for a short pitch shot, now the reason why we say on plane is when you go up to the top of the swing, your club and your hands and everything are above the plane. So you have to shallow it to get it back on the plane. And if you're someone who has a one plane swing, so let's say you're someone who brings the club up and you're already on plane, well, it's keeping it on plane in the start of the downswing. I see so many people who try to do a one plane swing. They bring it back on the downswing and then they don't bring it down on the same plane. They either come over the top or things like that. So whatever plane you use in the backswing, you need to get that club on plane and get that club face square as soon as you possibly can in the start of the downswing. So for a wedge shot, let's say you have a short wedge shot, typically you're not going to be very much off plane. So, and typically the face isn't going to be very open because you haven't taken much of a swing to open it. Now, maybe you really fillet the face open and you really need to square it up earlier in the downswing. It's not a technique that I would recommend, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult to do the move when you do that. So for a wedge shot, you don't really need to open the face very much. You can basically already have the move in place as you're starting out. So you're not technically doing a move. The move is already happening because it's already in place. The club's already on plane. The face is already square. So you can just turn through the ball. So yes, you want to do that with all your clubs, whether you're using a driver or wedge or whatever. So goes on to say, I've always opened the face at release when using the wedges, so I get a high ball trajectory and soft landing. Worried that this might affect my wedge game. Any comments? So you're saying that you set up square and then open the face as you're coming through contact. I mean, if you're trying to hit kind of a high wedge shot, you would want the face to be open, right? But you would want the other part of the move to be, you want to get the club working down on plane. You don't want to be necessarily cutting across it. So depends on kind of the wedge shot you're trying to hit. If you're trying to hit a floppy kind of shot, like what you're talking about, then you wouldn't want to turn the handle down to de-loft it. You would want to keep that loft on there, right? So that would be fine to hold the face open, but you definitely want that club to be working relatively close on plane. You don't want to be coming down really, really steep or too much from the inside, because that can lead to shanks and not very good contact as you're coming in. So as far as if you're trying to hit a normal shot, you want to be doing the move, squaring the face as soon as possible, so that way you can get the hands more in front at impact and getting the club on plane so you can hit it solidly. But if you're trying to hit a floppy shot, then I would just set up with the face open and basically hit, kind of hold that face open through contact and swing on plane. And that would give you kind of that floppy kind of shot that it sounds like you're looking for. So Stephen T says, can you talk about the mental part and its importance? I seem to struggle with one group of close friends, but play superbly with people I don't know. So, I mean, obviously the mental game is important. It's not really my expertise, though. I'll be honest with you. The mental game is not something I am an expert at. We do have a mental game section on the course. So if you want to check it out, you can actually click the house icon. That'll take you to the homepage. Then scroll down the homepage. You'll see the mental game section. We had a fellow by the name of Thad Leffingwell. He's worked with like Ricky Fowler and guys like that. He's a sports psychologist. And he was kind enough to do some videos for us. So there's some good stuff from there. I will tell you some things that have helped me as far as the mental game is concerned. So one thing I would say is develop a routine. So routine is important. So, my routine would be, on a full swing shot, right, would be number one, I'm going to assess my lie, right, see what's going on with my lie there. And then I'm going to get my yardage, and then I'm going to kind of see the layout of the hole, see where the pin's located or what kind of shot, where I need to go with it. And then I'm going to decide on the shot that I'm trying to hit, right? And then what I'll do is I'll get behind the ball and I'll kind of visualize that happening in front of me. So I'll be, roughly a few steps behind the ball, and I'll be kind of visualizing that in front of me. And then I will step into the shot. One look, right? I'll look one more time, and then I'll go, and then I'll hit the shot. That's basically, you want to develop that routine. If you are doing something different every single time, that can introduce some more difficult things. So I would develop a routine that works for you and kind of stick to that and practice it, so that way it never gets really far off. As far as other things, is that I stopped basically, with the negative thoughts. The negative thoughts are pretty tough. So one thing, when I first went to college, I had my first year of college golf was not good. I played terrible, and I almost wanted to quit. I quit golf. I played pretty good golf up to then. I'd actually played better golf in high school than I did my first year of college. I think it was just that I didn't let I I wasn't playing very well, and then mentally I was really hard on myself and not, not letting a shot go. I would just let it kind of ruin my entire round. So just too many negative things going on. So I worked on taking out the negativity, and my coach actually, he gave me paper clips, and he said, put these paper clips in your pocket, and every time that you have, it was like a huge amount, it was probably like 100 paper clips, put them in my pocket. And every time I had a negative thought, I'd have to put it in the other pocket. And what that does is, well, one, at the end of the round, you can see, okay, how many paper clips do I got? And you want to lower the amount of paper clips that you're getting, but it makes you aware of, okay, well, that's not something you want to think of. And then automatically you're going to stop thinking of those mental things. So once I just started going out there and playing and letting bad things go and actually having positive thoughts on shots, I started playing a lot better. And another thing that Thad talks about in the in that mental game section is talking about playing the course is instead of a whole entire 18 holes, to play it as 3 6-hole rounds, or 6 3-hole rounds, or something like that. And you can kind of break things down. So you can say, hey, I want to go 3 over on this, 3 over on this, or on this stretch of holes, or I need to go 1 under on this stretch of holes. You can kind of break it down and go through it in that way. And that way, you can, if you do bad on a stretch of holes, it's like it's a new stretch of holes. It's a new beginning. You kind of go to the next one. So, so what we have in there is good, and also any book by Bob Rotella is good. So Bob Rotella has written, I don't know how many books on the mental game. Just some I have here. This one's good. This is one that's called Zen Golf. That's a good one. I read that. That's a good one about letting the bad shots kind of go and things like that. This is a pretty good one. Fearless Golf. Let's see here. I think all the Bob Rotella ones are ones that I don't have physical copies for. Like I got those on Audible. But those are all really, really good. I don't know if I have any other. Oh, this one's good. I think this is actually a Bob Rotella book. Yeah, so this one here, Golf is Not a Game of Perfect. That's a really good one. That's a Bob Rotella book. So I read that one a couple times. Yeah, so that's what I'd recommend. I mean, these are experts, in that sort of stuff. That's who I would kind of look at. So yes, sorry, I wish I knew more about it, but it's just not something that I really get into. I typically get more into the technical part of golf instruction. I probably need to delve more in the mental stuff for sure. So James M says, what do you feel is the best way to start to learn to use the ground properly? I really extend a bit, not significant, but certainly don't move down. I'd recommend checking out our Stop Early Extension course. That's a really good one. That's a really good one to start helping you feel how the body should work. That's how I would start. The best way to start to learn. So to get to that Stop Early Extension course, click the house icon, and that'll take you to the homepage. Scroll down the homepage. You'll see a list of all of the courses that we offer. Select that Stop Early Extension course, and you can start learning how the body needs to work to use the ground properly. So Joseph A. So this will probably be the last question here. So real quickly as well, no office hours tomorrow or Christmas. And then next week, no office hours, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So anyway, Joseph A. Asked, since you brought up shanks, I started shanking my wedges once I started working on the move. These shanks happen at random. How do I stop these shanks? I've started shifting the weight to the heels, and this fixes it, but wondering if there is a better way. That's pretty good. So whenever you change the way your body is moving, it can shift things around. So what you just need to do is you just need to adjust your feel to get the desired result. So when you're working on the move, and you say, it happens randomly, but you're probably hitting most of your shots on the heel. Usually it's not dead center, then a shank. It's typically more heel, maybe a center, heel, then a shank. That's typically how it works. So what I would try to do is just try to hit the ball off the toe. I know that may seem trivial, but try to hit it off the toe. And that's going to help you to, move that strike closer to the center. Now, if you actually start hitting it off the toe, then you can ease off of that feeling. But you need to adjust your feel to get the desired result. So if you're still hitting it off the heel or still hitting the shanks, then you need to exaggerate it even more. Exaggerating hitting it off the toe even more, and then that will move that strike closer to the center of the face. Keep doing it until you actually start hitting it off the toe. So there are a couple more things that came in. So Jim S says, Q, Jim S here. Not sure why I show up as anonymous. On mine it says Jim S, so maybe it's just something not showing up on your end for some reason. But he says, in my opinion, office hours is the best understandable golf instruction I've seen. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate that. I've been a student of the game for 50 years, but I've learned more about the swing from you in the past few months. Awesome. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate that. And then Richard P says, I've noticed John Ram's swing is only about 3/4 full. Where does he get all his power? So one thing to keep in mind is that it may look like that because if you look at John Rahm's swing and actually a full swing, he's getting a 90-degree shoulder turn. He's like this. It just doesn't look. It looks like a 3/4 swing compared to other tour players, right? Because most other tour players have shorter swings. So, but where John Rahm gets his power is he's a big guy. He's not a small fella. He's a strong as an ox. He's a big guy. I think he's like 6'2". I don't know what he weighs, but he's a pretty big guy. And then there's the other main thing that I would say he gets his power from is something that's called neural adaptation. So he's probably swung really hard a lot of his life, and he's swung the club a lot. So his neurological system has adapted to allow him to be able to do that, right? So it's like asking how a baseball pitcher is able to throw the ball so fast. Well, a baseball pitcher is able to throw the ball so fast because of they've thrown the ball as hard as they could so many times, and they've built this neural adaptation. They've basically built a jet fuel engine. So, the sooner you start playing golf, the better you're going to be at building that jet fuel engine. So that's why you see a lot of the best golfers in the world that have played golf since they were kids, long hitters, because they built that jet fuel engine, at a very young age. And John Rahm is definitely one of those guys. So I'd say the big part is that he's just a big, strong guy. And then on top of it, it's the neural adaptation. This is something that we talk about in the 20-minute distance fixed course. It's one of the three big pieces of it. So one's creating more space and time to accelerate the club. And two is basically creating a better sequencing. And then the last piece is that neural adaptation, basically swinging with 100% effort. And that will build up your neural adaptation. Your body will get more adapted to swing harder, and you'll build up that speed. And it won't feel like you're doing that as much. So Joseph A says, I got to get going, guys, so please don't post any more questions, but I'll answer Adrian's one more here. So Joseph A says, Merry Christmas to you and your loved ones. Talk to you next year. Sounds good, Joseph. You too. So Adrian C says, thanks for all that you and your team do. What's the average swing speed for someone just beginning to play? I honestly don't know. I have never been on the golf course. We've never been on the golf course yet, but I have been watching your videos. Per the PRJ Black at the driving range, I swung 103, carry distance of 248, and total 264. How much more can I realistically expect to increase my swing speed by the spring? So a couple of things there. I can tell you, I don't know what the average club head speed is for a beginner, but the average club head speed for a male golfer is around 95 miles per hour. So you're above average at 103. Now, if you've never done speed training before, the average mile per hour gain going through our 20-minute distance fixed course is 12 to 13 miles per hour. So I would set a goal. If you've never done club head speed training before, I'd set a goal for 10 miles per hour for sure. But like I said, the average is 12 to 13. We've had people get 27 miles per hour in the 20-minute distance fix. And with that, there's going to be some people that get 6, 5, 6. It just depends on how much speed training you've done already. So someone who's done a lot of speed training, right? So let's say a long drive person, right? Kyle Berkshire, he's a long drive champion. If he did the 20-minute distance fix, he's probably not going to gain 12, 13 miles per hour. He would maybe gain 1 mile per hour because it takes, he's gone through a lot of this stuff. He's already doing a lot of this stuff in his swing. So, but I would say if you haven't done speed training, then 10 miles per hour would be a good goal and a reasonable expectation. So thanks everybody for joining me. I'll be back here on Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Everybody have a good rest of your day, and I'll talk to you all next time.